Absolute mayhem here this morning, here in the White Hart Hotel, right in the heart of Lewis, on Wednesday. Is it Wednesday, the 27th of April, 2022, and at 8:35. We're a bit late on this morning because bloody Oliver comes in, demands his coffee. Right, everything has to stop just so that Oliver gets his coffee.
Absolutely, Stanley.
Well, you just stay on the sidelines for a minute, mate. While we get ourselves sorted out. He caused the mayhem.
Typical. Pushing me out of the pitch.
So there we go. Yeah, here he is, the man himself. And Max is here, loyal, faithful Max. And Max will join us in the background in a little while. But let's see whether we can actually draw breath and get things going properly this morning. It's a nice day outside, but it's 2 degrees, 3 degrees chillier than yesterday. A mild wind, a gentle breeze, they say, a gentle breeze.
Well, the weather people refer to it as a chilly star. I would call it bloody freezing.
That's because you left your vest off this morning.
Not at all. What is it? What is the chap to do? Honestly, you come out and you sort of put your finger out and thing and see if it what it's like, and your finger falls off.
Well, I must say that the moss is much better at predicting the weather than all this high tech. I've lost faith in computers, as you well know. But anyway, here we are, Mirador Television, out of Lewis, in the White Hart Hotel. And this first hour is a look at what's happening in the world, and with a particular emphasis, of course, on a Wednesday on energy, on what's happening in that particular sector, with his nibs here. Mm-hmm. And then we get the youngsters' point of view with Max, who, after we old farts have had our say, comes around and starts to say, hang on, you chaps, no, this is what the youngsters are thinking. So is the mix that we have certainly will give you some idea of the different sectors thinking and what's going on. Right, let's turn to the newspaper headlines, first of all. And it's a mixture this morning, which means that many editors couldn't make up their minds what was the important news overnight. To me, one of the things that is significant and started after the papers had gone to bed, and that is that Putin is beginning to make threats towards the United Kingdom. He's starting to say, listen, if you permit your technology to be used by Ukraine in the fight in the war, then you are fair game, and we can respond in kind. Now, a lot of people shrug that off. Mr. Putin is just making threats. But let me tell you one thing. This man is not for turning, if you like. If he makes a threat, he normally keeps it. And if you look at his track record, I will go into the Crimea. Into the Crimea he went. I am going to cut off your gas supplies. Cut off the gas supplies he did. He then made a raid into Ukraine in the Lugansk area. He wasn't going to do that. He did. He often says things and delays and then does them. So if, in fact, we are going to look seriously at this man, then I think that we should pay attention. Am I a warmonger? No, I'm not. But I happen to have spent quite some time in Russia. I've spent quite some time in Ukraine, and particularly in the areas where the invasion has taken place and where the Russian troops have got a firm foothold. So I do know a little bit of what I speak.
But Stanley, nuclear power is a totally different ballgame. Deterrence has worked for the West and the world for 70 years. And deterrence means that if you look at Trump and Kim Jong-un, well, he started letting off nuclear once, safe in the knowledge that there would be automatic reprisal. So if he does a serious nuclear test, not just what he did the other day to an actual nuclear power station, but there will be an automatic response, which will blast Mr. Putin and Moscow off its heels in a very big way. And that has worked for a long time. And I don't really see why it's a change now, unless Putin is actually nuttier than we think he is, which, is very difficult, I think, for him to achieve. He can't go any madder, can he?
No, the American intelligence service, though, in the last couple of days have been saying that the feeling in the Putin camp is that actually whatever he does is we won't get heavy in our response. The West will actually be quite docile. And as a consequence, he could easily sort of test the waters and not think that the automatic response that you're talking about would be automatic. You may be right. Well, Oliver, sometimes you're right. Occasionally he's right. But I really think that it's one of the things that we should keep an eye on.
Yeah, but Stanley, it's not a question of what the Secret Service is saying. This is built into the nuclear bomb, the missile, because it's there. It's not a question of somebody pressing a button. It would be automatically happen. Right. They'd have to dismantle the whole system if they were going to do that.
Well, if you say so, then we have to pay attention to what you have to say. But I keep on reading about these systems and the computers and so on and so forth. And every time that I look at various things, is that there's always an exception. Somebody has always built in an exception. I mean, on a domestic level, is the Data Protection Act, which is it's designed to protect you and I and everybody else from people looking at our secret records, etc. Except there is an exception built in that if you haven't paid your council tax, the council can delve into your bank account.
Yeah, but it's but it's not quite the same scale, is it? It's not a matter of life and death that your bank account. All right, it's terrible, but it's not. The fact. The point is, like, why back in the day when everybody was worried about nuclear bombs and they were building shelters in the back garden and God knows what else. In this case, this deterrence has worked. I can't see that why it should stop now. I mean, well,
let's hope you're right and I'm not.
Okay. Yes. Well, it's usually the case, isn't it? It's usually the case, Stanley.
Max has got a very fierce look on his face there. These two guys are arguing about things that our generation just don't worry about. Right. Okay.
This generation.
Right. All right. Now, actually, the newspaper headlines are quite different. The Guardian is a DJ Westwood. Do you remember DJ Westwood?
No, certainly not.
No, I don't either. But anyway, he was quite famous, apparently, so I'm told, is now accused of sexual misconduct by multiple women over a 25-year period.
What, the women were misconduct, or he was?
Well, you
just said 25 years of women misconduct, you said.
Well,
lucky old him.
Well, I mean, the fact of the matter is that, going back to where I was 25 years ago in the media, is the conduct then was quite different to the conduct now. And I do worry that this modern generation stretch back and try to judge things by modern standards when in fact they wouldn't have applied, or people would have giggled and laughed 25 years ago.
I don't find out what model standards are. They don't jump on women, or don't do this, or don't do that. Come along, blimey. You've ever been to a bloody young rave? Oh, time.
Yeah. Well, it's don't tell.
Well, I think
anyway,
people know rather more about sexual behaviour than we do.
But I mean, the Guardian. That is the Guardian, isn't it? If the Guardian is leading on that, then there is a considerable difference of opinion amongst editors as to what is important. The Metro is Crunch Time UK. The paper says 59% of people have made lifestyle changes in the last month or two to react to the cost of living, the inflation, and all the other things. Have you made any lifestyle changes?
Me?
Yeah.
I don't know what a lifestyle change means.
Well, I mean, have you stopped using your Rolls Royce? Have you gone back to the Ford?
Oh, the only lifestyle change I've made is going to a different pub. Now, look, while I've got your attention, Stanley, I'm looking over there at the Crown Court.
Yes.
And there's a flipping great queue around the block. That means there's some very serious trial on.
There must be.
Can you remember any little murder cases at the moment? I'm going into my Agatha Christie mode now, you see. And what's happening is they're going in there, and there's been a queue around the block. So, well, it might be a rape thing.
Well, let's ask Max if he'll just to take a quick look on his phone and see whether he can see what is going on today at Lewes Crown Court. What a team! See, here is I struggle occasionally on my own and bore the hell out of you, and then we've got a plethora of our support people this morning, and we're right on the ball, right on the ball. And actually, yes, you can see that people are going in. That's obviously the accused's entrance.
They all look like very different people. None of them look sketchy, so I'm assuming it's the jury.
Right, okay. The Daily Telegraph is Sunak faces cabinet pressure to cut tax. Now, which tax is he going to cut?
Well, he said he's going to. One of the biggest jokes of all was he was going to take a penny off an income tax in 1924 for the election. Well, that's bonkers, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
you put up stuff by £5 and take a penny off tax.
I don't think Rishi Sunak knows the difference between a national insurance or what tax? Income tax? Or what tax?
I mean, just a month ago, he was being tipped as one of the people to take over from Boris if Boris was bumped. And now, apparently, the charts show his popularity is he's down to the bottom of the table.
Well, Boris must be jumping for joy. You see, the whole point is that when he became Prime Minister, he filled his cabinet with second-rate people, all of whom are Brexiteers, incidentally, and so that there was no threat to him. Unfortunately for him, Rishi Sunak came along, and after he fired David, and he turned out to be rather good. But now he's blown it, hasn't he? So you cannot think of anybody that can step up to the thing. And you've got to remember that Boris does have an 80-seat majority, and all those backwoodsmen in the Tory party are worried about losing their seats because of the ratings and so forth and so on. So Boris, the greatest escapologist since Houdini, will probably get out of it again. Oh dear, what's it come to?
Oh, indeed.
4 more years of Boris, come on, we'll all be broke.
Now here's something else which is going to affect the three of us here. Will all benefit from this. is the annual MOTs are being axed.
Really?
In other words, yes, you don't have to have an MOT on your car quite as frequently, or that's the plan. So that's going to save us a lot of money as families.
Really?
What about your car? How often do you take it in?
I haven't got one.
Right. How about you, Max?
I also don't have a car.
And I don't.
Well, I no.
So we've all got savings here.
No. The thing is, I got rid of my car 3 years ago because it had done its day. I just thought about it all, and I was paying 1,500 quid a year just to keep it on the road. And where we live in Lewis, there's a very good outfit called Co-Wheels, which is a community car service. So you can go along and the wives can pay very cheaply £4 an hour to take the kids to school, or go shopping, or take something down to the tip. Now, you wouldn't want to use Co-Wheels for a long distance because you go bankrupt. But for these kind of things, it's perfect.
Yeah, better than a taxi.
Yeah.
And
I found that I gave one in my car in 2017. In 2018, I'd gone from 1,500 to 800 hiring cars to go if I need to go long distance and so forth. There's another place just near Worthing, which called Europe Cars, which does very, very good deals. My only problem is I can't remember how to run a car, particularly with one which doesn't have gears. So as I understand it, the electric cars don't have gears, and they don't make any noise. So how on earth are you supposed to drive along?
Well,
so what I'm going to do, Stanley, is enlist with you to actually come to Co-Wheels with me and ride stagecoach so that I don't actually make a mess of things.
Yes. Well, I quite like it because actually James Stewart used to be the shotgun rider in Stagecoach. So I don't mind playing James Stewart to Who Are You?
Yeah, right. I'm James Stewart. I don't know. Yeah.
He doesn't know the heavyweight Western people. All right, the Daily Express. You're paying a record 718 billion in tax, but for what? And actually, one of the things that I have been raving about is that we have a generation of people in charge of all sorts of things, from the NHS through to immigration, you name it. They incompetent is a naughty word. But they certainly seem to screw things up badly. So I go along with the Express. What are we paying all this record tax for? And basically what the story is that Boris is now saying, hey, let's look at some privatization things because under government departments, they're not doing the job.
Well, look, listen, I must make a point here. Privatization of the energy companies under the Thatcher regime has led to a disaster. So we don't need any more privatization. The only problem was that nationalized industries became rather incompetent. Do you remember about the railways?
Yes.
Because you could wait for 3 days before a train came along and that kind of thing. So it's a bit even Stevens in a way, but privatizing these things, like as I've said so many times on our Energy Matters program, that when they privatized the energy companies in the early 80s, it led to this oligopolistic cartel of 6 big companies who were, well, I can tell you who they are. They were British Gas English, EDF French, E.ON German, Npower German, SSE English, I think, and then Scottish Power. And they were paying themselves huge salaries, huge fat salaries, and they were paying out the dividends to all the shareholders at the cost of the consumer. Now there's a cartel of 5 companies, and like a company called Bulb has gone bust, and the government's going to have to bail it out, 1.2 billion or something like that. Well, there's something wrong here, isn't it?
Yeah.
if our energy is all these companies are just making fortunes for their directors, and we are suffering from it. Well, I'm not, but most people are. It's not a good idea unless and the railways. Look at the National Rail. That's not been a tremendous success, has it really?
No, there is a swings and roundabouts. I think. Max, you found anything out about the court case?
It says that all information for Lewis Crown Court will be available at 10 a.m.
Ah, right. Okay. Well, yes. So it's now 9 o'clock.
Yeah.
We are going to be kept in the dark until 10 as to why everybody is queuing up to get in. It's not the acid bath murderer. That was 1948.
Not Russell Bishop, the
No, I think
rapist.
it was later than that. I think it was the 50s.
Was
early
it
60s.
the acid bath murderer?
Yeah,
Right,
I think it
right.
was early 60s.
Yeah. What about Russell Bishop? He was the famous one, wasn't he? Came from Moulscombe. Rapist,
Oh, right,
rapist,
yeah.
He's been compromised. Actually, I back in the day, I used to know a lawyer who I can't remember his name now. He used to go in the Crown Hotel, and he used to look after people in jail in Lewis Prison, and he used to come back and he said, "Oh yeah, oh, I've got to find out." No, you definitely won't be covered. He was talking to one of us. You won't be covered in sugar. They put sugar all over you and set you alight. That kind of thing. And it wasn't much fun, of course, but it was really quite a very interesting thing because he used to tell me all the stuff about it. There's another guy who drinks in Lewis, and he used to work at the prison when Reggie Cray was there. And apparently he had the entire prison, all the warders were terrified of Reggie Cray.
Well, he was a bit of a naughty man.
Well, no, he was better than his twin brother, wasn't he? Ronnie Cray, who was absolutely nuts, right? And he was put in Newport on the Isle of Wight. And he was asked in some kind of interview, he said, do you ever regret, do you ever regret what you've done? He says, yes, well, it's a bit difficult for me mum to come and see me in this place. That's what I do regret. This is on an island,
Right, the Mail. No, Mr. Speaker. And this is, I mean, to me, this is a storm in a teacup. But the deputy leader of the Labour Party was accused in an article in the Mail on Sunday of doing slightly naughty, lascivious things to put Boris off his stride.
Well, it sounds like something from a Carry On film, doesn't it? It's Kenneth Williams as Boris, and Hattie Jakes as Angela Rayner. Oh no!
Anyway, the Speaker has taken it seriously enough that he his accusations at the Mail on Sunday were misogynist, and that being a misogynist is a naughty crime nowadays. Mm-hmm. So he summoned the editor for a private chat. And the Mail is saying, under no circumstances is our editor going to go and speak to the Speaker, because that's an infringement of freedom of the press. So here's another nice little icing cake issue brewing up. Max must be sitting there looking at us and thinking, we're always on about the young and so on and so forth. This is our generation just completely utterly bloody mad.
It's actually weird because one of these backwoodsmen, a lot of the Tory backwoodsmen are retards. They don't know about all this kind of thing, and they just sort of go off the hook. That girl, she's a girl, who has a Hindi bag.
Right, now the Financial Times,
also,
this is your bag.
Yeah.
Right, what it's saying is that Tesla, the car company, is going to take a hit because he's
going to use the money to buy.
He's going to use money to buy Twitter.
He's already officially bought
it. Yeah. He's not sure. Look, this is all right. The shareholders are going to lose a few bob, including me, but never mind. Anyway, and he's not short of $100 billion. He's the richest man in the world. The really interesting question is why he's bought Twitter. He can't be that interested in gossip, can he? You know, he seems he's doing rather. He wants to do rather good things. Rather, you know, he wants to use it as an educational platform. I've never had anything so bonkers in my life.
Yeah. Well, he'll have one little bit that is an educational page, and the rest will go on as it is.
Well, as a social media expert, what is your take on it, Max?
I am so glad Elon Musk has bought Twitter. Unfortunately, he hasn't deleted it quite yet, which was what everyone was hoping. He would buy it and delete it. That was a joke going around. But
Buy it to what?
Buy it to delete Twitter.
Oh, I see.
And he hasn't done that, which is unfortunate. But so yeah, no, he's bought it so he can majorly reform it, bring back free speech, bring back a lot of banned people from Twitter who were didn't deserve to be banned as well. And he's just gonna try to make it a much less toxic place as well, I hope. But that's very, very difficult.
And you believe all this, do you?
I sure hope that this happens.
Come on, bring your chair around. It's time for you to join us.
All
right. All right. This is young Max, who is our apprentice, a student.
That's a nice old phrase, yeah.
There he is. Make yourself. Now, don't you move out of the shop.
Right.
Gosh, you'll give everybody a heart attack. Right now, here we are. It's the three worthies. Let's just finish off the newspapers before we go to anything else. Russia threatens strikes against Western targets. And apparently already, economically, they've cut Poland off from any sort of gas. Now, Mr. Energy, what difference is that going to make to Poland?
Not a lot, because it's the summer, and Poland apparently has actually done a lot of storage, so they're going to get through the summer. I would have thought. See, the summer is supremely different to the winter, because the bills actually really come down,
right.
and gas is very much available. And well, what I'm going to talk in the program later is that, because of Russia's threats, what alternatives are there? And there's all kinds of options now. Well, we'll go into that later, but people have talked about fracking. Well, I don't think that really is an option. But then when you get into Boris's confusion about, well, last time we spoke, it was a Wednesday, so we didn't have what Boris was saying. What he's going to say in his strategic document. But there is a lot of options that you could have. Now, he's chose the nuclear option, which is, he seems as confused about it as I am, because what he was talking about for ages and ages, these SMRs, which are small modular reactors, which you can actually assemble parts of somewhere and you can make it in a factory. But now he's talked about Hinkley Point, which is one of those massive great things on Somerset on the seashore, which costs a great deal of money, but does actually produce a lot of energy. So you don't know what the right thing is. But when you get into nuclear, you get into all the accidents we've had. We've had 20 since Sellafield. And remember, back in the day...
20 accidents?
Oh, nuclear accidents, yeah. People dying or people catching it. Like, people from Sellafield had it for the rest of their lives. This was way back in the 70s. And John May, was a campaigner here, has written a book on nuclear accidents. And around the world, there's been loads and loads of them. Look at Chernobyl, look at 3 Mile Island. But the ones here have been pretty, there's 20 since the first nuclear one as well. I mean, Hinkley Point is the first big nuclear power stations in 30 years because of, the dangers of it, the nuclear waste. I was invited to Germany about in 2017 to go down a nuclear mine, a place where nuclear waste was stored. And they said, they made it pressed upon me that nowhere in the world has got a final resting place or a final place where nuclear waste can be stored.
Right.
Now,
so we're producing this stuff and we've got nowhere to keep it. Is that right?
Well, we can keep it on a temporary basis. Now, Germany sent some of their nuclear waste to Sellafield, so it's still up there apparently, but it's not a final resting place. This stuff can actually, get out. Like Assa mine, where I went down, actually was a salt mine. The salt mines deteriorate. And some of the waste, they didn't know where it had been put, but some of it was getting into the atmosphere. And affecting biosphere out there. So it's not, it's like somebody puts somebody in a coffin and the coffin deteriorates underground. And, the bones are just there. And if you put this stuff in, they're now putting it in a nickel or something like that nickel casket, which is not penetrable as other irons. But you don't know. I mean, the Germans are much, much more advanced on all this than we are because they've got this nuclear history that, that Hitler was going to have nuclear warheads.
Right.
And they're very, very, very nervous about nuclear being done by nuclear.
Right. The Sun. We have no alibi for Maddie suspect. And that's what the, let's see, some Portuguese, I guess, police force are saying that we've got this guy, we pinpointed him. He hasn't been charged, but he has been, the name has been bandied around. And there are those people who say, no, he was at X place just at that particular period. And the police force saying, no, we haven't got an alibi for him. So I suppose really that after, what is it, 17 years?
Slightly more than that, I think.
Is it?
Yeah, much more than that, I think, yeah.
Did she go missing before I was even born?
Yeah.
Jeez.
I've got a feeling it was in the 70s.
No, I don't know. I don't think it was that long ago. I'll have a look.
Yeah.
Well, the suspect is only 45.
Very about right. That'd be 80 from it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, well, how old was she?
Was 40 years ago.
Yeah.
She was only 3 or 4, wasn't she? Yeah.
No, she was. Yeah.
Right. Okay. All right. Max is going to he's going to act as a fact checker this morning. Well done, Max. All right. The Mirror. Addicted to giving, a big-hearted lotto winner. She won 120, 130 million quid or something on the lottery, and has given half of it away.
Yeah, quite right too.
Well, I mean, I was in line, but there must have been a lot of people ahead of me because I didn't get any of it.
But what are you going to do with 132? I mean, it's a whole rich thing. Like, you remember people like, what's his name? The guy who lives in Monaco there, but the B&Q, what was his name? The guy. He's got 3 yachts, and he's a billionaire, and his wife lives in Monaco. You know what he's called?
I know, but I can't recall.
I can't remember the name. But, well, thingy about that bought my website, Jim Mellon, he was a billionaire. And I said, well, what are you going to do with it? You're gay, what are you going to do with it? And he said to me, it's not the amount, it's the chase. The money. People want to make money. And it gets out of hand. Like one bloke in Monte Carlo was absolutely furious that Abramovich had a bigger yacht than he did. And all the people I was in the oil business, all the very rich people I knew, they always sort of opined that making the money is the easy bit. Holding on to it is the difficult bit. And that is, it's as if, you get all this money that you don't need. What are you going to do with 3 billion quid? Well,
I mean, it is the same question, isn't it? What do these young footballers do? £50,000, £60,000 a week.
And the rest, £100,000. Well, the thing is that, I slightly sympathise because they have a very short career span.
Well, even so, it's a lot of money.
Even so, it is. Yes, it's excessive, and I think everybody's now agreed that it's ridiculous. It's excessive. You know, a footballer is worth what, 10 million or 40 million or whatever. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely.
But the whole point I'm trying to make them to that when you get that much money, the only thing you can do with it is give it away. Because you give it all to your kids and all the rest of it or not, and then you've still got another bloody billion. Well,
right.
You know.
Or you buy Twitter.
Huh?
Oh, you buy well done, Max.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I searched it up. Madeleine McCann. She went missing in 2007.
Oh, really? Oh, funny.
She's the same age as me. She was born in 2003.
Ah.
So
Right.
she is born at the same time as me. A couple months before me.
She was almost 7, was she, when she went missing?
No, she was 3.
3. Yeah. That's
Yeah.
right. Yeah. Well, anyway, they seem to be zeroing in on the potential suspect.
We've been there
And
before,
they
then,
say
haven't
that he doesn't have any alibi for the time that she went missing. So, and finally, my lovely Daily Star is he's a barrel of laughs, ain't he? And Lavrov, the Russian deputy premier, I suppose he is, supporting Putin, is sort of making all sorts of extravagant claims, the sort that I was making at the beginning of the program, and saying, hey, you know, be careful because we can unleash hell, as it were. And the newspaper says, well, he's a barrel of laughs, ain't he? Basically, they are scoffing a wee bit at the extravagant claims that this man is making on behalf of his boss, Putin. But by the same token, as I say, you have to be very careful with Russians. They may seem to be making extravagant claims, but they actually mean it. So I think we have to be a bit careful there. So those are the newspaper headlines.
But I think with Putin, isn't it? Right, there are loads of look. He was made by the mafiosi, by all the oligarchs, wasn't it? Basically, and so forth. Now a lot of those have been had their knuckles wrapped, if you like. But as I understand it, there is a very close circle around him of various people. Now, if he really annoys them or affects their interests or so forth and so on, then they're going to push him out. That's how they get rid of these people. That's what, eventually happened to Stalin, I think. And it's just the same with all these dictators. They go slightly mad if they've been in place for a long time, don't they? Really mad. And he has definitely got this thing of restoring the Soviet Empire. He wants to be like the Tsars. He wants to be like Stalin. He wants to actually restore it to what it was. But he probably, well, look what he's done. He's done Georgia, hasn't he? He's done Chechnya. He's now doing Moldova. He wants to do Ukraine, which I personally don't believe he's going to manage in its entirety. Then he's going to probably have a go at the Baltic states before he gets round to us. But maybe NATO, maybe Biden, maybe. See, Vietnam was the watershed for America, that they wouldn't anymore actually try and do country formation, which is what they were doing. They'd done in the Philippines in the 1950s. They wanted to build a country in their image with a Senate and all of it, right?
Yeah.
Same with Afghanistan. Russians had to go at those, and then Britain and America had to go at those, and it didn't work. You can't form a country in the same model of your own.
No, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, can you imagine here in the House of Commons we have something called the sword line, and if the next time that you actually look at television pictures live in the House of Commons, you will see a red line in the carpet going around the chamber, and that's the sword line. And it is exactly 2 sword lengths between the opposition and the government. So that when they whip out their swords, they can only just flick the blade. They can't actually fight. Now, that sort of thing as we tried to impose in the Philippines, and there they just clamber over the desks and batter one another on the head when they. So what's the point? What's the point? You're quite right of trying to impose these things on a different culture, a different emotional response. Indeed, different aims and objectives.
Well, you see, the thing about Afghanistan is it's a bunch of tribes. It's not a one country. It's a little bit like some African tribes. Like if you look at Rhodesia as it was, or Zimbabwe as it now is, there was the Nedabelli on one side and then the Shona on the other one, because all the actually colonial lines were drawn wrong. They put too many. If you put a couple of tribes into a country, you're bound to have a civil war, aren't you? And that was true of Namibia. It was true of Kenya. Do two different tribes, and it results in chaos.
Right, Max. It's a week since you've been on here, and so as much has happened to you as has happened to us. Is there any particular issue that your particular generation, or you and your colleagues, your pals at the college, have been saying, "Tut tut tut, this is a bit naughty"?
Well, the Elon Musk thing has really taken over the news for the younger generation. It's all everyone's talking about right now. It really is. There's nothing else anyone's talking about right now.
Well, that's the Twitter thing.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, I discovered that we've been feeding this program into Twitter for quite some time without me realizing it. So I suppose that I should understand what Twitter is all about. Why is Twitter different to some of the other social media platforms?
Twitter is different to all the other social media platforms because it's where literally almost every single politician is, and every single media outlet is. They're all on Twitter, all of them, and that's where a lot of them get their news from as well, which is horrifying.
Yes.
Because Twitter and social media doesn't reflect the real world, and people like mobs of people go and campaign against a big company, for example, like Google, and say, "Oh, you're doing this wrong," and they think that's the majority, but it's not. It's the vocal minority. It's a very small percent of people who are impacting all the change.
Right.
Everything all right?
Yes. Okay. Now, why is everybody so desperate to get onto Twitter all of a sudden? I mean, social media platforms have been around for quite some time. So what is it that has made Twitter so different?
Well, it's actually the smallest of all the big tech platforms. It's only got, it's got 200 million users. A lot of people used to be on it, deactivated their accounts like me. I used to be on Twitter. They went a bit insane. They banned a bunch of people, and I went, well, this platform's no fun anymore, so I left. And now Elon Musk is now the owner of the company. I immediately rejoined just because it's going to be an S show, really. It's going to be... I don't really know what to expect, but he's really going to change the company.
And you're convinced of that?
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I'm convinced of that. This all started over the suspension of a Twitter account called the Babylon Bee, which is a satirical news site. They got suspended, and Elon Musk phoned up the CEO and said, "Did you really get banned?" And they were like, "Yeah, we did."
How does it relate to TikTok, Max?
Twitter and TikTok.
Yeah.
They aren't particularly related. They're both big tech social media platforms.
What does TikTok do exactly?
TikTok infects the minds of the youth. That's what it does.
Infects them.
Infects the mind of the youth.
What? Yeah. How do you infect a mind? What does that mean?
By feeding them brain dead content. Seriously.
So the basic. They're like the sun, really, the lowest of the media, You
could say that. Yeah, that's a good
analogy. If you think about it, I abominate Rupert Murdoch because he's ruined our media. But what is it? The Sun? It's about titillation. It's about pandering to the lowest common prejudices.
Yeah.
It's about, it's about celebrity, people who are famous for being famous. Who gives a damn? I'm not the slightest interested in how many women Wayne Rooney has slept with, for goodness sake. And this is the sort of what has come to because of Mr. Murdoch and people like Trump who agree with it. And it's the lowest of the low, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
Well, now, chaps, we've been twittering on for it's now 9:20. We only got 10 minutes left in this particular. Can I ask you, Oliver? Do you wish to do your energy bit here, or do you wish to wait until 9:30 and we enter the new phase?
Yeah, I'm prepared to wait.
Right. Okay. Well, then let's. Because what we normally do is we try to take some sort of I've discovered ways of doing this. Let's just see if we can get light relief. Now, does that evoke any memories for you?
It's a bit beyond my time, I think. Belfast, yes.
1970
I was in Belfast.
to 1989. Not so long ago.
We go through Belfast, don't
We do. Oh, now, the interesting thing is it is not so long ago, and certainly his nibs here and I both were in Belfast covering the troubles as journalists, as reporters. But the one thing that I remember particularly is when you went into some of those areas that we just saw in the pictures there, is you were searched. So you put your hands up like that, and you started to automatically do that. As you approached a barrier or you approached the entrance to a store, you did that. And I came over to London on one occasion, and I was on Oxford Street, I think, or Regent Street, and I went into a store, and I walked in through the door, and I put my hands up like that, and they all thought I was an evangelist.
Well, the thing about it was that nobody was in the UK was interested in the troubles in mainland Britain, so we say. I mean, the general feeling was it ought to be towed off into the Atlantic and sink. But you have to go there to try and even begin to understand sectarianism. It's very, very difficult. It's not a question of tribalism. It's very, very, very complex. And I vaguely, first of all, people thought it was about religion. The Catholic minority was being oppressed by the majority, and it started off really as a civil rights campaign, 1968. But then, over the years, it ceased to be about civil rights. It became extremely political. And I asked Chris Lindsay, who was a very moderate Protestant councillor. I said, what is it you've got against the Irish? Do you just think they're a bunch of potato-eating peasants? Or what is it? What is it? He said, it's not a question of their religion. It's not a question of their confessional states. And, Paisley keeps saying, the Pope is the devil incarnate. It's just not my country. That's what he said. That, is no unionist because he felt he was British. He belonged to the Union. And that really was a bit of a turning point for me. That people, they weren't, the troubles weren't about this ridiculous religious war.
Yeah.
And if you think about it, there's two books that were really good, which was one, The Green Flag, by, do you remember, Robert Key?
Right.
And he said the religious divide was settled 300 years ago in mainland Britain by the Court of the Roses. It never happened in Northern Ireland. That this religious war was not settled. But it started moving from that. You remember that Ireland was a confessional state. I mean, the government was the religion sort of thing. But over the years, now, for example, the polls are saying if you took a poll over the entire of Ireland, they would actually say that they wanted one country. In fact, there never was a united Ireland. This was a myth. The only time there was a united Ireland was in the 16th century when Brian and Banu had united all the tribes. But they lived since then in the idea of it wasn't one country. It's very, very interesting to think along those terms, isn't it?
Isn't it? Yeah. Indeed. Right. Well, it is now 27 minutes past 9:00 in Lewes, in East Sussex, in the White Hart Hotel, which is where we're broadcasting from. And for our American friends, of which we have many, I'm happy to say, is the White Hart is where Tom Paine formulated the rights of man and plotted the departure of the colonies from England and from the influence of the royal family. So that is the history of where we're in, a very historic hotel. And you're looking at the those beams behind us are original. There's nothing fake about this hotel. Everything is original. So those beams were over Tom Paine's head as he sat at the bar here, drinking and mightily, and he did drink mightily, putting things together. And the situation was volatile, to say the least.
Absolutely. And Lewes has been a protest town ever since.
Bloody Lewes.
Lewes has been a protest town. If there's anything to protest about, Lewes will be in there. Right? Yeah. For example, when one of the pubs stopped using Harvey's beer.
Oh
yes.
Yeah.
That was good. And there was a story in the New York Times. This can't happen. This can't happen. And fine. It got taken over by Green King, didn't it?
Yes, it did.
And they banned, and the director who did that was fired from the job. Anyway, the good news was during this protest, the Con Club came into being. Now, the Con Club was the constitutional club up at the top of the hill, which was the Conservative Party place, and it was, almost dead, with newspapers being ironed and hung out dry. And now it's a wonderful rock venue for us ravers.
Well, I mean, it's a musical centre, isn't it?
Yes.
It is the Con Club is the only a bit of it that refers back to its history. Okay, right now from Max, Oliver. And me, Stanley, aka known as Stuart Dolby and Keith Hayes. We are going to say goodbye. We will be back in about 5 minutes or so with affairs from the heart, and that is that a lot of light-hearted stuff, but also some of the key things of issue at the moment. We'll be back in no time flat, he said. It takes us about 10 minutes to distribute this program and turn around. So we'll be back very shortly.